The woman who stumbled through the door of Blackwood's Tavern at 9:47 p.m. on a Tuesday night was maybe 24 years old, 5 months pregnant, and bleeding from a split lip. Her left eye was swelling shut. She wore a torn jacket over a waitress uniform, and her hands were shaking so badly she could barely hold onto the doorframe. The bar went silent. 17 bikers turned to stare. These weren't weekend warriors in pristine leather. These were members of the Iron Riders MC, and every cut they wore had been earned through years on the road, and more than a few nights that ended badly for someone who'd made the mistake of pushing too far. Jack Hammer Morrison set down his beer. He was the chapter president, 46 years old, with gray threading through his beard and knuckles that had been broken too many times to count straight anymore. He'd seen plenty of trouble walk through that door over the years, but something about this girl made his gut clench. "Help me," she whispered. Then her knees buckled. Tank caught her before she hit the ground. He was 6'5", close to 300 pounds, and had hands the size of dinner plates, but he held her like she was made of glass, easing her into a chair near the bar. "Doc," Hammer said quietly. Richard "Doc" Patterson was already moving. He'd been a combat medic in Afghanistan before he came home, and found the only family that made sense anymore, wearing cuts and riding Harleys. He knelt beside the chair, his trained eyes cataloging injuries with practiced efficiency. "Someone want to tell me what happened?" Hammer's voice was calm, deceptively calm. The woman's good eye found his. "My boyfriend, ex-boyfriend, Marcus Reeves. He tried to drag me into his car outside the diner where I work. I ran. He's coming." "You're safe here," Tank rumbled. "You don't understand." Her voice cracked. "He's a cop. Nobody will help me. I've tried. I filed 3 reports. Nothing happened. He said if I tried to leave again, he'd make sure I lost the baby." The temperature in the room dropped 20 degrees. Doc was checking her ribs carefully, his jaw tight. "Bruising here is at least a few days old. This wasn't the first time." "5th time," she whispered. "In 2 months." Hammer pulled up a chair and sat down so he was at eye level with her. "What's your name?" Sarah Novak." "Okay, Sarah, I'm Jack. That's Richard, and the big guy is Tank. You're going to tell us everything, and then we're going to figure this out. But first, Richard's going to make sure you're okay. The baby, too. All right?" She nodded, tears spilling down her cheeks. Doc worked quietly, checking her pulse, examining the bruises on her arms where fingers had dug in hard enough to leave marks. "Baby's heartbeat sounds strong," he said, after listening with a stethoscope he kept in his bike saddlebag for exactly these situations. "But she needs to see a real doctor soon. These ribs might be cracked." "Tell us about Marcus Reeves," Hammer said. Sarah's story came out in broken pieces. Marcus was a 5-year veteran of the Millbrook Police Department. They'd dated for 8 months before she got pregnant. That's when everything changed. The first time he hit her, he apologized, said it would never happen again. It happened again 2 days later. She tried to leave. He found her at her sister's place and dragged her back. Told her sister if she interfered, he'd arrest her for obstruction. She went to the police. Marcus's sergeant was his best friend from the academy. The report disappeared. She went to a lawyer. Marcus showed up at the lawyer's office in uniform and had a friendly conversation with him. The lawyer called her the next day and said he couldn't take her case. She tried to leave town. Marcus caught her at the bus station and broke 2 of her ribs. "He said nobody would believe me over him," Sarah said. "He said he owns this town." Hammer listened to all of it, his expression never changing. When she finished, he stood up and walked to the bar, poured himself a shot of whiskey, downed it. Then he turned back to face his brothers. "Snake," he said, "get on your laptop." David "Snake" Chen was the club's tech specialist, former software engineer who'd burned out at 35 and found more meaning in the brotherhood than he'd ever found in Silicon Valley. He pulled his laptop from his bag and flipped it open. "What am I looking for?" "Everything you can find on Marcus Reeves, Millbrook PD, and I want to know if Sarah's the first." Snake's fingers flew across the keyboard. The bar stayed quiet except for the clicking of keys and Sarah's ragged breathing. It took him 7 minutes. "Oh, Jesus," Snake said softly. "Jack, you need to see this." Hammer walked over, looked at the screen. His jaw clenched so tight a muscle jumped in his cheek. "There were 2 others," Snake said, loud enough for everyone to hear. "One filed a restraining order 3 years ago. It got dismissed. The other just disappeared. No missing persons report. Nothing. But her social media went dark 18 months ago, and the last post was about leaving her boyfriend, a cop named Marcus Reeves. The room erupted. "We need to find this piece of... I'll kill him myself. Brothers." Hammer's voice cut through the noise like a blade. "We do this smart. We do this right. Or we do nothing at all." Tank stood up. "Jack, we can't just..." "I said smart." Hammer turned back to Sarah. "You said he's coming. How do you know?" "He always finds me, and I took his gun." Every eye in the room fixed on her. "When he tried to grab me, I fought back. He had his service weapon on his belt. I grabbed it and ran. It's in my purse." Hammer's mind raced. This changed everything. A cop's service weapon stolen. Marcus would have to report it or face consequences. But if he reported it, he'd have to explain how a 120-pound pregnant woman managed to take it from him. Unless he claimed she stole it while he wasn't looking, or unless he came to get it back before anyone else knew it was missing. "He'll come here," Hammer said. "He'll have tracked your phone or asked around. Someone at the diner saw you run this direction." "Then we give him what he wants," Tank said grimly. "No." Doc stood up. "We get Sarah somewhere safe, and we call the state police. This is beyond us." "The state police will call the local department," Snake said. "Standard procedure for domestic situations. Marcus will hear about it before the staties even get here." Sarah's good eye was wide with fear. "Please don't make me go back to him. Please." That's when they heard the sirens. Hammer moved to the window. 2 Millbrook PD cruisers were pulling into the parking lot. Light bars flashing blue and red across the building's weathered facade. Marcus Reeves got out of the first car. He was tall, good-looking in that clean-cut way that played well on TV. He adjusted his duty belt and started toward the door. Another cop got out of the second car. Older, sergeant stripes on his sleeve. "That's Thomas Kirkland," Snake said, reading from his screen. "Sergeant, 22 years on the force, and Marcus's best friend." The door opened. Marcus Reeves walked into Blackwood's Tavern like he owned it. His hand rested casually on his holstered weapon. Sergeant Kirkland followed 2 steps behind. "Gentlemen," Marcus said pleasantly, "we're looking for Sarah Novak. I believe she came in here about 15 minutes ago." Hammer stepped forward. "Maybe she did. What's your business with her?" "She's my girlfriend. She's pregnant and not thinking clearly. I'm worried about her safety." "Funny, she told us you're the one she's not safe around." Marcus's smile never wavered, but his eyes went hard. "I don't believe I caught your name." "Jack Morrison. This is my bar." "Well, Mr. Morrison, Sarah stole my service weapon during a domestic dispute. That makes her armed and dangerous. I need to bring her in before someone gets hurt." "You filed a report on that stolen weapon yet?" The smile flickered. "Because I'm thinking if you had, there'd be more than 2 cops here right now. State police, probably. FBI if a cop's gun is in play. But it's just you and your buddy, which tells me you haven't reported it, which tells me you're lying." Marcus's hand moved closer to his gun. "Step aside." Tank moved to stand next to Hammer, then Wolf, then Razor. One by one, 17 bikers formed a wall between Marcus Reeves and Sarah Novak. Sergeant Kirkland's hand went to his weapon. "You're interfering with police business." "Show me a warrant," Hammer said calmly. "Show me a filed report. Show me anything official that says you have the right to take that woman." "Sarah," he called over his shoulder, "you still have that gun?" "Yes." "Bring it here." Marcus tensed. "Don't..." "Relax, hero. She's going to give it to you, but we're going to do this right." Sarah walked through the wall of bikers, moving carefully, one hand protectively over her belly. She pulled the service weapon from her purse, holding it by the grip with 2 fingers like it was a snake. "Here's what's going to happen," Hammer said. "Sarah's going to give you your gun back. Then you're going to leave, and if you ever come near her again, if you so much as drive past her house, we're going to have a different conversation, one that doesn't end with you walking out of here. You're threatening a police officer. I'm promising one." Marcus reached for the gun. That's when Sarah spoke up. "I want to press charges." "Sarah," Marcus started, "I want to press charges for assault, battery, terroristic threatening, and stalking. And I want a restraining order." Marcus laughed. Actually laughed. "Sweetheart, who do you think they're going to believe? Me or you? I'm a decorated police officer. You're an unemployed waitress with a history of mental instability." The rage in the room was palpable, but Hammer held up a hand. "Snake, show him." Snake turned his laptop around. On the screen was a video, shot through a window. Marcus Reeves shoving Sarah against a wall, his hand around her throat. The audio was clear enough to hear him say, "Nobody will believe you over me." "I found her social media," Snake said. "She's been documenting everything. 23 videos, 14 audio recordings, photographs of every bruise, every injury, with timestamps. Medical records from 3 different emergency rooms where she said she fell. Text messages where Marcus admitted to hitting her. Emails where he threatened her. She uploaded all of it to a private cloud account." He looked at Sarah. "You weren't clumsy. You were smart." Sarah nodded, tears streaming down her face. "I knew I'd need proof. I knew nobody would believe me otherwise." Marcus went pale. "There's more," Snake said. "I did some digging. Found the other girlfriend, Melissa Chen. She's not dead. She's in Oregon under a different name. Took me about 40 minutes to track her down, and another 10 to get her on the phone. She's willing to testify. Says Marcus put her in the hospital twice before she faked her death and ran." He paused. "And Sarah Novak gave birth to a healthy baby girl 4 months later, in a hospital room, surrounded by flowers from the Iron Riders MC. She named her daughter Jackie. The bikers collected $3,200 for Sarah that night. 10 years after that night, Sarah walked into Blackwood's Tavern and found a plaque hanging over the bar. It was made of polished wood with brass lettering that read, 'The Night We Chose Family, September 14th, 2015. Below it, mounted in a glass case, was Marcus Reeves's service weapon, disassembled, rendered permanently inoperable, a symbol of a threat that no longer existed, and next to it, a photograph. Sarah at 24, holding her daughter minutes after giving birth, surrounded by 7 bikers in leather cuts, every one of them grinning like proud uncles. Hammer found her staring at it, tears in her eyes. "You okay?" he asked. "I was just thinking, if I hadn't run into this bar that night, if I'd gone anywhere else, but you didn't." "No, I didn't." She turned to him. "Why did you help me? You didn't know me." Hammer was quiet for a moment. "You walked through that door bleeding and terrified and asked us for help. What else were we supposed to do? Most people would have turned me away. We're not most people." Jackie came through the door then, 17 years old, wearing a leather jacket with an Iron Riders patch on the back that read, "Family." She'd earned it by organizing a charity ride that raised $40,000 for a domestic violence shelter. "You ready, Mom? Uncle Snake's teaching me how to build a website tonight." Sarah smiled. "Yeah, baby, I'm ready." She took one last look at the plaque, at the photograph, at the faces of the men who'd saved her life by simply choosing to give a damn. Sometimes the most dangerous-looking men are the best protectors. Sometimes family isn't blood. It's chosen. It's earned. It's the people who stand between you and the darkness without asking for anything in return. And sometimes, on a random Tuesday night, a pregnant woman walks into a biker bar bleeding and terrified and finds out that she's not alone anymore, that she never has to be alone again. Marcus Reeves sat in a cell 240 miles away, 8 years into his sentence. He'd tried to appeal, tried to argue police misconduct and unlawful arrest. Every appeal was denied, every argument dismissed. The other inmates knew what he was, what he'd done. Cops didn't do well in prison, and cops who beat pregnant women did even worse. He'd learned that the hard way. Sergeant Kirkland was out now, working security at a shopping mall, divorced, living in a studio apartment. His son wouldn't speak to him. His ex-wife had remarried. The judge had moved to Florida, disgraced, disbarred. The poker games had stopped. But at Blackwood's Tavern, every Tuesday night was family dinner. Sarah brought food. Jackie helped tend bar when it got busy. The Iron Riders told stories and laughed, and made sure everyone knew that if you needed help, if you were running from something you couldn't fight alone, their door was always open. They'd helped 6 other women in the years since Sarah, 3 men, 2 teenagers, a kid whose parents had kicked him out for being gay, an elderly vet who was being scammed by his own son. The Iron Riders didn't advertise, didn't look for trouble, but when trouble found someone who needed protection, they were there, because that's what family does. And as Hammer always said while raising his beer on Tuesday nights, one hand on Jackie's shoulder and Sarah smiling beside him. We don't choose the family we're born into, but we sure as hell choose the family we ride with. Everyone would raise their drinks to that, every single time.